broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's user webinar on WeEstimate, how to create inspection sales. My name is Stephen Nasty, and joining me today is Samantha Perry, who will be instructing us through. So after this webinar, you'll be able to do the following: create an inspection sale, sell inspection as outright or as recurring, and how to display inspection on your proposal or contract documents, and also how to associate inspection with your equipment ERG. As always, we want you to get the most of your time today. So if you have any questions anytime throughout the webinar, don't be shy. Just go ahead and type them right into the chat, even if it's just because we've gone too fast or if you want to see or hear something again. We have a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. Sam?
Awesome, thanks, Stephen. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good day today. We are focusing on the test and inspection module today. So I did see in the registrants, some of you are using the module today. Some of you may be interested in it. So feel free to ask questions as we go along. The test and inspect items are going to be right within a job under the search and add. So I've already created a job and I have a folder called inspection, and we're just going to start from here. But anyone who needs a little bit more from scratch, feel free to refer back to any of our prior videos on creating a job. With test and inspection, it will have its own menu of items. The idea is that these are inspection items, and what differs these items from just standard recurring items or parts and labor is that there is an aspect of time in terms of physically inspecting a part or piece. It could be varying system types, right? I'm going to talk about fire today, but if you are inspecting, a video system or, any other type of system, it's really that there's a time and a price element to auto-calculate your inspection. So that tab will be here under search and add, and you should have your different menu items. There is kind of a main category and then items underneath. And so here for today, if I wanted to take a smoke detector and drag and drop into my inspection folder, and we had 25 smoke detectors for quantity, we'll see that line item add below under my test and inspection grid. Now the columns that are available to me are in the user's grid rights. So dependent on what you are allowed to see or edit, you will see in this grid. So it may look a little different than mine. But that kind of time and cost association is now going to be displayed here in the orange row. So this smoke detector takes 6 minutes to inspect. I have a quantity of 25. I'm going to do it once a year and test 100% of the devices. I'm marking that up 30% margin for a cost of $1 per minute. So it's actually going to be $1.43 per minute, and then it auto calculates my extended cell. Now I'm going to continue to do that for more items. I'm going to say I need 10 of these and 4 of these. And now we're starting to build our inspection. So now both of these devices take 30 minutes to inspect. You saw the quantity I entered, and then everything else is extended from there. Now there is a toolbar at the top where you can turn on your test and inspect, just like you would your other toolbars for parts and labor. So now I see my cost and sell for inspection. And I'm also seeing that as an outright sale, as the cost and sell is matching here because I don't have anything else on the job. If you are selling inspection as its own job, it'll probably look similar to this, but if you are also selling the installation of any equipment or labor hours or any other recurring charges, you'll see those add in the other toolbars, and then your grand total will be in this kind of turquoise blue. If you are instead selling your inspection as a recurring, there's actually a switch to flip in the bottom left corner here. I believe this is also something that can be defaulted, where if you would rather sell the inspection or your organization sells the inspection as a recurring, when I flip that switch to the recurring, I instead will see the monthly, which is actually just the total sell of the inspection divided by 12. So that's in my RMR toolbar now. and it's no longer in my cell for the outright, because now I'm selling it as just a recurring. What you'll also see then is all the test and inspect items are going to roll up into a singular RMR item now that auto calculates as you build the inspection items to a single line item for the recurring. And so that's actually mapped under the hood of the system in your program options, where your system administrator would set any inspection items should all roll up into this RMR item, and then that is set as a default. Now, if that is the case, it is going to follow the standard kind of RMR settings in either the grid or on your proposal document. Some of you base term and billing frequency off the fields in the grid. Others select these and checkboxes on the document tree, but you do have both as options. So just keep in mind when you're working test and inspect as RMR, it's going to act and be treated as any other item that you would have under RMR, versus if I were to switch this back to outright as a one-time sale, then it is not being sold as a recurring and only an outright. I know some of you do that in that it is an annual, but you'll sell it, you'll resell the contract each year, in which case you don't sell it as a recurring. It is sold as an outright instead. I know everyone does it a little differently. So I'm going to pause. Any questions so far?
Yep, Sam, so it looks like one came in. Where do I find the button to switch from amount to RMR?
Okay, bottom left corner, there's this link to, it's right at the very bottom of your screen. You have to be on the test and inspection grid. Below your items, you should see link to, and you have none, RMR, or outright. So when I flip these switches back and forth, you can see my totals are moving from RMR to the outright sale and back and forth.
And there was also a follow-up to that came in. If we're doing an annual fire inspection, would you also put in the FAP annunciator too?
Yes. So essentially all the items you would need, or all of the inspection items and the device types should be listed and created under tools. And then you should have that full menu for selection here. So when you search for any item, you would be able to grab any of the devices that you need to inspect and then drag this over. And I want 16 of these, or there are 16 I need to inspect, 6 minutes per, and it'll auto calculate everything out from there. So if there's an item or a device type that is not on your list, I would work with your system admin to make sure that that's getting added. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, please feel free to clarify.
Another question came in, Sam, too. Can you set global hourly rate?
Yeah, so what most people will do in order to calculate the minutes is, so it works off of minutes per device. So most people will take the hourly rate, divide it by 60, and put that as the price per minute. So then that will calculate up to the to the number of hours and meet that rate. So what I have seen for some people that do have a very, a pretty standard hourly rate, you'll see the same kind of cost per minute for many of the devices. Like I see $291 is pretty recurring here. $291 times 60 is like it's not totally even, but it's probably like $1.75 an hour. 175 divided by 60, yeah, it's $291,666. So that's likely why that number is recurring over and over, is that they're taking an hourly rate and then they're dividing that by 60 to get the cost per minute. Now, for some of you that it has come up where well, if the smoke detector is higher than 10 feet, then it's different than, it'll take 20 minutes instead of 5 minutes. In that case, people will often have two items for the same device. One will just, maybe say smoke detector with, more than 10 feet, or difficulty factor of 1, 2, or 3, or, everyone does that a little differently too. But if you didn't want to go within the item, which I can still do. If I said, well, it's typically 5 minutes, but for walking around this building, it's probably going to take me 10 each, then you can always change the time frame as well on the fly within the job. So hopefully, JR, that answers your question there. Any others before I continue to the document?
Yeah, so there was one more question, Sam. If we just quote with a fixed RMR, fixed labor amount of, let's say, like 8 hours, can we still select RMR on the bottom left? And can we also just plug in a labor amount to RMR?
So recurring isn't true. Yes and no, right? If you're integrated with an accounting system, the system is going to see everything has to kind of live in a bucket, right? You're either going to have equipment, labor hours, recurring, chargeable items. So if you're selling 8 hours, I would probably put that under labor, and you'd have, 8 hours of, inspection labor. Maybe you also have a designated category for, because it's not installation, it's not engineering. However, if it is being treated as a recurring, this is kind of why I had mentioned some people don't sell it as a recurring, even though it is a recurring. And the reason being is that they sell the annual agreement as an outright for labor, and they'll have that re-signed year over year, but they specifically don't want it treated as recurring monthly revenue because it has to be logged as labor. So you can go either way. I think it's just a discussion between the organization to determine, how does this have to go downstream? If this is being integrated into an accounting software, these figures fall into a certain slot dependent on the type of item that it is, if it's labor or if it's recurring. So that might be the reason you have to drive something a certain way. Otherwise, if you're not held under that requirement, then you have kind of the freedom to design it how you want in WeSuite. But you'll see when we go now to the proposal, it's going to be shown as inspection as either an outright purchase or as recurring. It's not going to display as labor unless I physically include some hours of labor. I have seen some people where the system will auto-calculate the minutes. I know actually one of the enhancements that we're waiting for is the sum here, so you can see the sum in the total of hours. We can have that display on the document regardless, just to also see it within the job would be nice here. But yeah, I think without working with each individual system on how you would like to present this as either labor or recurring, I wouldn't have kind of the black and white answer, if that makes sense. So I think that actually pertains to this next question. Is labor tasks connected to test and inspect module? And that is not. Labor tasks is just another grouping of tasks that need to be done underneath a labor category. So nothing to do with test and inspection. Okay. So let's take a look at the proposal now. I'm going to go to the document screen and I'm going to generate a proposal. Now I've saved a template for myself called fire inspection template that just will auto select the checkboxes the way I'd like to. Otherwise, feel free to check whatever you'd like or make alterations to any templates you currently have. You should have a test and inspect section revealed here on your document tree. If not, it's likely just hidden because it is something that comes out of the box with the document. And so if that is the case, let your system admin know. We can get those turned on. Otherwise, if you always sell as a recurring, you really don't need this section. Again, the RMR section is going to control this. What do I have it set to now? So I have it set to outright. And so what we're going to see here is that nothing is going to display under the RMR section, and it's going to display as just an outright sale, even though I have RMR on. So let's go ahead and look at that. Skip these pages. Okay. So now here's my quote. I've asked it to show me inspection and to display the line item and the extended cell. Sorry, back to the quote. And so that's what it's showing me here. Now, my proposal by default will just show this total equipment as 0. Yours might hide this. If equipment equals 0, don't show this line. Some keep it because they do like the customer to see you're not purchasing any equipment. We're only doing inspection. But that's why you'll see the total for that kind of item type, test and inspect, and then the total proposal is the same because, again, there's nothing else on this job but the inspection. But if you did have inspection plus equipment plus labor and other recurring services, everything would line up as per usual, but then you would see inspection as an outright in this case. If I flip it to recurring and we regenerate, we'll see two sections now. We'll see the inspection as well as the RMR item that all rolled up into that inspection, and then the total. Now, I also, as a reminder, have my recurring item set to annual and for 5 years, but I could change this to monthly. And then let's also say I don't want to see the extended of the inspection. I just want to see it all rolled up into one. So we'll turn off extended for inspection. And we'll regenerate again. Okay, so now in this case, I'm listing out the devices and quantity I'm inspecting, but I'm displaying it only as a monthly price. Again, you could have kept it annual if you wanted. And so now I see that as the recurring, and it's going to be treated as recurring on any reporting, on my commission plan, on what goes into the accounting system, and so forth. Any questions about the document display? This is very specific to your organization, so it's likely very similar checkboxes and triggers, but everyone's document works a little differently, so definitely try it out in your own, but should be pretty straightforward for you. All right, great. So business as usual then for getting this document out, would go ahead and send it. And the only other item on my list for today was also the association of inspection items with equipment. This is very specifically to WeSuite parts. So for those of you using accounting parts, may not pertain to you, but under the hood in WeEstimate under the parts editor, we're either reading parts live from your accounting system, or your parts are being read from PSA or in WeSuite. If they're PSA or WeSuite, the part has this option to come along with, when I add this smoke detector, also bring in the inspection for it, or also bring in, you know, if I'm selling a camera, also bring in its monitoring. And these two columns allow you to bring kind of partner items with the device, just not something that is doable in the accounting parts today. So for those of you live reading from accounting, you wouldn't have this option and would just do basically what we did today, which is add all my equipment, then come over and build out my inspection. But if anyone's really interested in that, happy to speak with you more about your particular system and see how we can set more of that up. again, it's simply adding a part, and as you add parts, the inspection will also start to build out for you. Okay. Any other questions? Do see one more here. Why didn't the total equal if I had 150.33 on the folder and 150 for the monthly? So good question. I think I have round figures on here. If I turn that off, it was just rounding to the closest dollar. Let's turn that off. And now I should see my full 157.33 cents. Yeah, no, good catch. That was why. Okay, so question came in maybe a little late to the webinar, so no issue. What are the advantages of using this module? So great question. Probably should have started with that. So the test and inspection module really allows you to again, put a time aspect to your inspection. So what a lot of people were doing prior to this was, okay, I think based on my walkthrough of the building and the devices, it's going to take me, a day to do all of this. So that's 8 hours. Sold as either labor, or if you are selling this as a recurring, they would then add a recurring item for $0, and it would be called, whatever. Let's say I have inspection probably in here. Maybe there. Okay. But they'd have an item in here for inspection. They drag it over and enter in a total. What this module allows you to do is have an alternate set of items that are treated as test and inspection codes. These codes then have a cost per unit, a time to inspect the device, the percentage in which you're going to inspect, and the annual frequency and the GP. Now these might also have some other, looks like there is kind of a component here for labor, but I don't think this is something that was fully vetted out feature yet. I can ask about this. I think, Katie, that was your question. But ignore the labor piece, everything for these 5 fields, right? And then once you have that, now you have all your items. So one thing we talked about is this 291 is likely, that times 60 is 175 an hour, right? That's the cost per hour of labor. They divided that by 60 to get the cost per minute. Now that I have the cost per minute, I can walk the building and say, all right, there's 25 smoke detectors, 10 voice evacuation systems, 10 enunciators, and let's put in, I have, the elevator, 3 of those, emergency lighting, there's 15 of those. And so you're building the inspection as you go just by entering in the quantity of devices. The time and the price is calculating outside of that. And then it lands to, okay, Mr. Customer, you're monthly for this inspection, or maybe I want to bill it annually, is going to be, $2,400 a year. So the advantage here is that you as the sales rep is just entering in quantity of devices as you're walking the building, and then the inspection is going to auto-calculate for you. Question, can you show what the summary report is going to look like? Sure. So I believe you're right in that if you're using Outright or RMR, the summary report will likely follow suit. So let's take a look. If I'm selling it right now as RMR, I see that now. Okay. Now my report is probably not the same as yours. I would assume since no labor, this section would hide, but on mine it's not. But it is showing as recurring, and I see it here as recurring. and it is not being sold as outright, and so I don't have any overall GP or anything like that. Now there's also not a, and then I also have it under the inspection section, which is the next page here. Now, a lot of people have customized their job summary report, so it probably doesn't look exactly like mine. Many have chosen to either add to what's here, repurpose other fields, rename things, switch a box for a different box. So if that's something that you haven't taken advantage of, feel free to work on that with your account manager here. Usually people literally take a red pen to this and say, well, hide this column, but turn on that column. And so if I were to switch this back to outright, I'm sure we'll see that those fields switch around a bit. Now let's regenerate this. We'll see it as outright instead. And so now my RMR section is hidden. I think I probably just need to make a request to my team to do the same for labor in my demo. It doesn't auto hide here, but I see my inspection and it's being sold as an outright with my GP. And I believe notes also has its own section for test and inspect if you use these different notepads. So I might put, site drawings in Dropbox, and finance got a deposit. And now when I regenerate this summary report, I'll see those notes. Another question came in, would you also have a contract with the recurring inspection price? Another great question. So here's the notes there. So when it comes to contracts, everyone's contracts again are a little different, but this is another benefit to the module. If you are selling it as a recurring, but you don't want, many of you are using Ken Kirschenbaum contracts that have like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right, in which there's different, the monitoring goes here, inspection goes there, service agreement goes here, and it all adds up to a monthly. The other advantage to separating test and inspect is it's treated as RMR, but the value of which, or the document knows, land in this other section, or just be treated differently in some cases from the other recurring revenue items that I have. And so if that's the case, then just because I have inspection on a job, and I don't have great samples of contracts in here for you guys, but that could then automate on an agreement to, the service agreement is now going to include, smoke detectors, sprinkler alarms, and, whatever else. I'm physically checking these boxes, but I wouldn't necessarily need to do that. It would just know to populate that amount into a certain field. And so we'll take the codes against those items, either per code or per description, or just all inspection should always land here. The other monitoring services should land here, and then there's a grand total of your monthly somewhere else. So that would be the other advantage to that, is it can be, it could have further kind of logic, the formula into what makes the document generate in a certain way because something is an inspection. It could also fall into play for any admins on the call for the approval module, for the commission module, to really designate that the inspection is being treated differently in some way, or it needs to be approved by someone different, but again, can still be sold as a recurring. And I think that's it. So a lot of really good questions. If there are any more, please feel free to enter those into the chat, but nice, straightforward module, very easy to set up. Probably the most difficult part is where you need to program everything on a document. We work with your admins on that. But otherwise, I think I've gotten through all my material today, so you'll probably get some time back in your day. If there aren't any other questions, we'll go through what's on the agenda next month, and this is going to be posted on the website too if you want to refer back.
Awesome. So I'm not seeing any more questions. Sam, I did see a quick note that came in really quickly. Sam, can you send Katie a screenshot or a copy of the form you just showed?
Or I think probably our sample service agreement. This is literally just some sample, but yeah. Yep, happy to do that. Like this and list the inspection items and
Yeah, she's saying that.
okay, yeah. That's about it. I know others have a document that looks like this, but then it'll have other pages. So yeah, happy to send you this. It's just a sample you can probably use as inspiration for something. So all right. Thanks, Stephen. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Awesome. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you feel a little more comfortable, and if you're not using it, hopefully you're inspired by the test and inspect module. And if you need to refer back to this again, as Sam had mentioned, it's going to be emailed to everybody attending today. And you can always reference it back to our website under the Sales User Webinar page. So mark your calendars for our next Sales User Webinar, which is going to be Knowing and Loving the ERG. That's going to be on September 19th at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.